You think you know the story of the Snow Queen, the children's tale told in picture books and softened for winter holidays. It seems like a simple fable of friendship, courage, and the battle between warmth and cold. Yet what if I told you that hidden within this tale lies something far older and far darker? Beneath the polished surface of Hans Christian Andersen's 19th century narrative rests an ancient stratum of myth, one whispered across cultures for more than 1,000 years. The story of Gerda's desperate journey to rescue Kay from the frozen grip of the Snow Queen is not merely a seasonal fairy tale. It is a record of forgotten rituals, of archaic symbols once carved into stone, of a goddess who ruled not only over snow but over memory, soul, and death itself. To trace this tale is to enter a labyrinth of folklore, archaeology, and mystery, where the snow is not soft but eternal, and every flake conceals a secret. Once upon a time, in a quiet northern town, there lived two children, Gerda, a bright and loving girl, and Kay, her close friend who shared in every game and secret. Their lives were simple, filled with blooming roses in the summer and snowball fights in the winter. They were inseparable, bound by a trust as strong as kinship. But one winter, something terrible occurred. A shard from a cursed mirror, created by dark forces, struck Kay in the eye and lodged within his heart. Suddenly, his vision of the world turned bitter. Beauty seemed ugly, love felt cold, and laughter appeared foolish. No longer did he cherish Gerda's companionship. He became harsh, distant, and eventually was lured away by the Snow Queen, a majestic and chilling figure who swept him off to her palace of ice in the far north. Gerda was devastated. Though everyone told her Kay was lost forever, she refused to believe it. With courage far greater than her years, she set out on a journey across forests, rivers, and mountains. She encountered enchantresses, wise women, animals that spoke, and robbers both cruel and kind. Through each trial, her steadfast heart guided her forward. At last, she reached the frozen halls of the Snow Queen. Kay sat there, pale and still, as if trapped in an endless dream. Gerda's tears, born of pure love, thawed his frozen heart and washed away the shard of glass. Together, they returned home, their friendship stronger than ever, and the roses bloomed once again. This is the story as many of us know it, a tale of loyalty and innocence, of a girl's love triumphing over icy cruelty. Yet, the versions handed to children may conceal far deeper origins. The tale of the Snow Queen was first recorded in 1844 by Hans Christian Andersen in Denmark. Presented as one of his most elaborate fairy tales, it spanned 7 parts, weaving together a journey both physical and spiritual. Yet Andersen himself did not invent this story out of thin air. He was drawing upon currents of folklore, symbolism, and oral traditions that long predated his pen. In its 19th century form, the Snow Queen represented not merely winter's cold, but also the dangers of reason without compassion. This reflected European anxieties of the time, the rise of rational science, the loss of spiritual warmth, and the alienation that industrial society created. The Snow Queen's palace, perfect yet lifeless, mirrored these concerns. Over the decades, the tale changed in its retelling. Victorian readers softened Gerda's journey into an allegory of Christian virtue, presenting her persistence as faith rewarded. In Russia, the Snow Queen was reimagined in children's theaters as an embodiment of winter itself, stern but necessary, reflecting the harsh northern climate. By the 20th century, as fairy tales entered cinema and television, the darker elements, demonic mirrors, kidnappings, bloodstained journeys, were often trimmed away. Instead, the Snow Queen became an icy villainess or, in some modern versions, a misunderstood spirit. What began as a meditation on innocence and corruption shifted into a spectacle of winter imagery. The historical transformations reveal how each era molded the story to suit its moral framework. Yet through all versions, certain images persisted: the shard of glass that corrupts perception, the endless frozen palace, and the child's arduous quest. These motifs whisper of something older than Andersen, older even than the Christian allegories layered upon them. They echo myths and symbols that stretch back into the deep past. On closer inspection, the Snow Queen's tale reveals uncanny parallels with ancient myths across the world. Consider the cursed mirror that shatters and embeds itself in Kay's heart. This recalls the Norse myth of the god Loki, who fashioned tricks and deceptions that poisoned vision and corrupted trust. Mirrors and shards often symbolize fractured perception, suggesting that Kay's corruption is not just personal but cosmic. The Snow Queen herself, enthroned in ice, mirrors figures from far older traditions. In Slavic folklore, the goddess Marana ruled over winter, death, and dreams. She appeared as a white-robed woman who froze rivers and guided souls across the threshold between life and the other world. Likewise, in Norse sagas, the goddess Sky embodied both snow and vengeance, a formidable force whose beauty was deadly. The Snow Queen seems to be a descendant of these frost-born deities, softened in name but not in essence. Gerda's journey, too, bears mythic resonance. Like the Greek Persephone descending into Hades to recover lost innocence, Gerda ventures into the frozen underworld to retrieve her companion. Her tears that melt the ice echo the ancient concept of water as life force, purifying and restoring the corrupted soul. In this light, Gerda is less a mere child and more a priestess figure enacting a ritual of resurrection. Even Kay's imprisonment carries symbolic depth. His stillness and coldness recall the initiation rites of shamans in Siberia, where candidates endured freezing trials, symbolically dying before returning with spiritual insight. Could Kay's ordeal represent an echo of such rituals, masked as a children's tale? Through these parallels, the story of the Snow Queen ceases to be a quaint fairy tale. It becomes part of a global tapestry of myths that bind winter to death, journey to rebirth, and innocence to the power of divine restoration. In 1921, archaeologists excavating a burial mound in northern Russia uncovered an artifact that startled them. A carved ivory fragment showing a woman crowned with snowflakes, her arms outstretched above two children. The piece dated back to at least the 9th century, long before Andersen's time. Scholars immediately drew comparisons to the Snow Queen, suggesting that the tale may have preserved memories of a goddess whose cult once stretched across the northern steppes. Further evidence arose in Finland, where oral traditions preserved by the Sami people told of a frost spirit who carried children away in sleds pulled by reindeer. In Central Asia, stories spoke of the White Mother who imprisoned souls in icy mountains, until a ritual of tears released them. Each of these echoes resonates with Gerda's journey and Kay's imprisonment. By the mid-20th century, researchers noticed that tales of a child or companion stolen by an icy figure appeared across vast regions. From Scandinavia to Mongolia, the pattern repeated with remarkable consistency. A vulnerable child, a magical or cursed object, a guardian figure, often female, and a perilous crossing into a frozen realm. Experts began to theorize that these stories might not be isolated folktales but fragments of a much older myth. Some proposed that they stemmed from Indo-European traditions over 3,000 years old, where seasonal cycles were dramatized as the abduction of warmth by winter and its recovery through ritual. Others saw parallels with Paleolithic cave art that depicted animals trapped in crystalline forms, interpreted as metaphors for hibernation and rebirth. The Snow Queen, then, may not be a quaint invention of 19th century Denmark. She may be a shadow of a primordial goddess, preserved in whispers and carved relics. Her tale traveling along trade routes and across frozen tundras, eventually resurfacing in Andersen's pen centuries later. To understand the Snow Queen's story fully, one must see beyond its surface charm and decode its symbolic language. Each object, action, and character contains layered meaning, inherited from older traditions. The shard of glass is more than a plot device. It represents corrupted perception, the human tendency to see beauty as ugliness, or truth as deception. In ancient ritual language, glass or crystal shards symbolized fractured souls, pieces of the self scattered across realms. Kay's possession of the shard is thus a metaphor for spiritual disintegration. The Snow Queen's palace is not simply a castle of ice. In many mythologies, a frozen structure symbolizes stasis, the halting of time. It is the place where the soul lingers between life and death, motionless until released. Kay's stillness is the condition of a soul trapped in liminality, neither fully dead nor fully alive. Gerda's tears hold the key. Water, in countless traditions, is the element of renewal. Tears, born of suffering and compassion, are the most personal offering of water one can give. When her tears melt Kay's icy prison, it echoes ancient rites, where water restored fertility to barren lands, or brought a soul back from the underworld. Even Gerda's journey follows the archetype of initiation. She travels through the forest, the unknown, confronts robbers, the chaos of human greed, receives aid from animals, guides of the spirit world, and enters the palace of death. Her victory is not through force but through purity and persistence. This mirrors shamanic traditions where the initiate must pass through trials to recover knowledge or rescue a soul. Through this lens, the Snow Queen is less a children's fairy tale than a coded myth of death and rebirth. It describes the eternal cycle: corruption, descent, suffering, purification, and return. Gerda is not only a friend but a symbolic savior, a mediator between worlds. The Snow Queen herself is not wholly evil but the necessary keeper of frozen time, without whom rebirth could not occur. The story of the Snow Queen, which many know only as a winter fairy tale for children, proves to be something far more profound when examined through history, archaeology, and myth. It is not simply the adventure of a brave girl rescuing her lost friend. It is the survival of an ancient drama retold across centuries and reshaped to fit different moral frameworks. At its heart, the tale is about vision and transformation. Kay's eyes and heart are corrupted by a shard of illusion, symbolizing the loss of truth. Gerda embodies the healing force of compassion, journeying across frozen boundaries to recover what was lost. The Snow Queen, far from being a shallow villain, represents the ancient and inevitable presence of death and stillness, the winter of the soul that must be endured before spring can arrive. Archaeological fragments, oral traditions, and mythic parallels show that this story reaches back into the mists of antiquity. It may echo rites of initiation, seasonal cycles of death and rebirth, or encounters with frost deities whose names are now forgotten. What Andersen gave the world was not his own invention. but a polished window into humanity's deepest fears and hopes. So when you next hear the story of the Snow Queen, do not think only of icy castles and friendly reindeer. Think of the forgotten shrines buried in snow, the carved figures of winter goddesses, and the tears shed in rituals thousands of years old. This tale is not just for children. It is a bridge between worlds, a reminder that every winter conceals a hidden spring,